I'm amazed at the shit you pulled off. Injecting everybody to soul snatch your soul. RNA protein spikes, this is war. Crimes against humanity, they're killing us all. It's called eugenics. Yeah, they said it and they meant it. Vincent intensive, coke blues expensive. And they're like, just give me my money. Dancing at your ass on TikTok, you dummies. PCR tests, ICD-10s, but change to bring the money of a COVID death.
We're taking things that are, genetically modified organisms, and we're injecting them in little kids' arms. We just shoot them right into the vein.
And those are your kids, so wake your ass up before communism breaks your ass up.
Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
Well, mass vaccinations, the only path to a return to normalcy. Almost 4 months into the vaccination effort, providers are beginning to run out of people who want to be immunized. Be immunized. Be immunized. Be immunized.
Know your enemies. First warehouse for the Know Your Enemies podcast, episode 27. We got the Red Light Robin Hood over here. What are we doing, Steve?
Fighting!
Yeah, that's what we're here to do. I hope everybody's having a good week so far. The weekend blew past real quick, man. How was your weekend?
It was, well, my weekend went quick, too quick.
Too quick, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like time's speeding up over here, man. So we have Klaus Schwab has officially stepped down from the World Economic Forum. It's about time, man.
Now he needs to die.
Yeah, well, speaking of death, you know who died, right? The Pope.
Oh,
Oh, my God.
crazy.
So I really don't look at the Pope
On
as-
Easter.
On Easter. God works in mysterious ways. You know what
A
I mean?
lot of people didn't like that Pope. I don't really know why.
No, I know why. Because he was ushering in things that, don't go with the Catholic religion. Like he was, hey, it's fine to be homosexual.
A lot of
when
people thought it was strange that Vance visited him the day before he died.
They're blaming him for the death. That is hilarious. But anyway, in the Bible it says homosexuality is an abomination in God's eyes. It's really supposed to be a family unit, man, woman, children, and so he was siding with a lot of the globalist, Green New Deal, and so he was more of a globalist pope than an actual Catholic pope that wanted to preserve.
So I heard Donald Trump busted into the Vatican and stole all the gold.
Oh man, I wish.
That's what I heard.
That would be great. That
I
would be great.
I have my ear to the street.
I know. You got the street ear, man. It's got the street ear. So this weekend, like we said, it flew by. But in between it flying by, I stopped by another one of the Tesla takedown protests that was going on in Manhasset, New York, right across from the Americana Shopping Center. And this is a place that's got about $1 billion worth of merchandise in there, real high-end shopping center. And I stopped over there to see what was going on. And when I tell you I've never seen this many senior citizens out at one time, it's like I put a post up. I said, I haven't seen this many wheelchairs since the Handicap Olympics, right? Which is absolutely nuts, right? So CNN, MSNBC, and all these other mainstream media programs have been telling the seniors that they're going to lose their Social Security income, they're going to lose all of their Medicare, and they're going to be left for dead on the streets. So it's got all these old people riled up, and I got a little bit of footage we're going to run right now.
That's terrible playing on the minds of our seniors.
Yeah, it's messed up. What's up, everybody? James Justice, UCNY News. We are here at Manhasset Americana Shopping Center. Across, they have these Tesla protests going on with the goblins, and we're going to take a quick walk through, look at all these creatures, these carbon-based life forms. Look at this. Look at this. How wild is this? So, this is the clown show we got going on today. They're so proud of their signs. So I had this lady sneaking up on the side of me, and I spin around real quick and catch him and watch. What's up?
Hey, you read my mind. Take a picture.
I'm shooting video. You're good. So we're out here. Goblins are out in full force. They're getting a lot more fingers than they are support. Shout out to the boys in blue. They're out here making sure everything remains peaceful and no Teslas get set on fire. Right? They've been firebombing dealerships, so you gotta be careful. You never know. Could have agitators. Yeah, so there was a lot of old people. You can cut that one off. I have another clip we're gonna get into. But yeah, so there's a lot of seniors out there that are very concerned.
Easily manipulated.
Very easily manipulated because, you know, they depend on their income, and as limited as it is, you know, that's all they got. So when the news says, hey, we're going to take your living and take it away from you, you know, they're going to freak out. And that's exactly what I'm seeing on the streets. So
Well, I could give them a job.
yeah, the funny thing is they all have these signs, and none of them can basically make sense of the signs that they're carrying. They have no idea.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, so I came across this lady that had a sign that said, hands off U.S. mail, right? And I approached her and to ask her about the sign, and man, she looked me up and down like I was the biggest piece of crap on the earth. But let's show that clip. All right, guys, thank you. You're very welcome. Hands off U.S. mail. How are you today? I have a question about the sign. Hands off U.S. mail. What does that mean?
Do you know the words?
What's up?
Do you know the words?
Yeah, it says hands off
Speak English?
U.S. mail.
You speak English?
Well, what's the meaning behind it to you?
What is the U.S. mail?
Well, what's going on with the U.S. mail that you feel that needs attention?
How do you feel about the U.S. mail?
I get my mail on time.
I do too.
So what's?
I would like that to continue.
So is it being threatened or like I'm not sure. That's why I'm asking.
Sir, there are a lot of problems in the country, and we're here to say we would like them solved. So perhaps you'd like to talk to someone else
Yeah, absolutely.
who
Well, next time, just have a good answer of what exactly is in the mail.
You could just learn English.
I speak English very well.
Google, what Doge is doing.
But you're holding the sign, so it must be important to you. So if it's an important topic to you, you should be able to say, hey, like.
I don't like.
all right.
I don't like speaking to people who are being purposely obtuse.
So anyway, but if all of these seniors, they couldn't
Sir,
explain their signs. So
Then the finger goes in your face.
oh, dude, she was shaking and everything. She was really
Let her know that I'll give her a job. She could rake leaves at one of my houses.
right.
Seriously.
She could be a greeter.
After they lose their Social Security, don't worry. I will give you guys a job raking leaves.
You're not losing your Social Security. Don't worry. All right. So it's fake news. CNN's lying to you, ruffling your feathers, getting you to do things that you wouldn't normally do. You should be playing bingo.
Or
at
you
the
could
senior
rake
center,
leaves.
hanging out, enjoying your lives, and not, trying to grab signs and show up at Tesla dealerships at 70, 80 years old.
Or you know what you could do if you really don't know what to do for money? You could chop down the red light cameras because they're not being used, and you could scrap the metal, and that could probably help out.
That would be a big deal right there. That would be good. That would be good for
Some of these
society.
seniors could still do it.
Yeah. So we got Hillary Clinton back in the news again. So apparently she's been running around talking about how citizen journalists should be locked up for spreading propaganda. The same propaganda we've been talking about all this time with the Smith-Mundt Act and Obama legalizing it. So it still needs to be repealed. So if you're going to look for truth and accountability within the media, you're going to want to repeal the Smith-Mundt Act. All right, look it up, know it. Get on your legislators' phones and start calling them and putting the idea in their head that this needs to go so we get some accountability. So let's listen to what Hillary Clinton had to say.
And boosting Trump back in 2016. But I also think there are Americans who are engaged in this kind of propaganda. And whether they should be civilly or even in some cases criminally charged is something that.
Yeah, criminally charged, like you should be. I don't even know how she's still walking. I don't even know how Bill's still walking around with no, ball and chain, shackles, cuffs. They should not be able to see the light of day. They should be behind a concrete wall for the rest of their lives until they die, because they're a disgusting couple. Hey, what happened to Danny Williams, Bill? Where's Danny Williams, Bill? That's your illegitimate son. We know.
I saw you getting him on the
He was this close
show.
to coming on the show.
Yeah, come on, get him on the show.
Yeah, he was this close to coming on the show. And we know about your dirty secrets. We know about the body count with the Clintons. And
He
it's
knows.
over-
I don't know anything.
Yeah, it's over 113, the number was, or something like that. So
Anyway, for those of you who don't know who Christopher Sign is, Christopher Sign was the reporter, journalist, renowned, decorated journalist who broke the story Mystery on the Tarmac with Bill Clinton and Loretta Lynch.
yeah, check that out.
That's a crazy story, and his name was Christopher Sign.
Yeah.
So if you get a chance, Google him, go on YouTube, type in Christopher Sign journalist, and learn about him.
Yep, the truth is out there. You just got to look for it. Speaking of the truth, I want to bring up the vaccine schedule, because now that RFK is doing this thing and everyone's in an uproar about RFK now. Oh, yeah, he doesn't believe in vaccinations because after his press conference, he said that the autism rates have been spiking, and basically it's in direct correlation with the vaccine schedule. So let's pull up that vaccine schedule and look at it real quick. Can we make that full screen? So this is the vaccine schedule from birth to 18 years old. Everything that's highlighted in yellow has to do with the childhood schedule. And if you take a look at around 2 months old, you're getting a lot of vaccines, And what they don't do, or what they don't test for, is to see how these vaccines mesh together when you're given all of them at once. And the aluminum levels on these things are super scary. So as you see at birth,
There is not one part of the human body that could ever use aluminum. It has
No.
absolutely no benefit, no use whatsoever in your body.
No, not at all. And then at birth, right, they expect your baby to take a hepatitis B shot, which is high. I think it's like 250 micrograms of aluminum, which is absurd. And on top of that, if you go to the next graph, I have something for vitamin K. This right here. Can we zoom in on that top portion? Perfect. So right here it says that this shot can cause death in the black box warning, and anaphylactic shock, and many other things that are toxic to the human body. And it says it right in the insert. The doctor won't tell you. The pharmaceutical companies won't tell you unless you dig for it and pull the insert. So this is the insert with that, which is ridiculous. It says death right on the package, and still, when your child is born and he's not even an hour old, they inject this into them, which is ridiculous, right? Absolutely ridiculous. And I have one more graph on here.
And the fact that people just go for it is
Yeah.
not good either.
Yeah. So this graph right here is the vaccination rates from the 1940s into the current year, and basically showing how the vaccination rates rised. Back in the 60s, 50s, they were giving maybe 3, 4. Now we're over 100. So what this graph is showing is the blue line has to do with the vaccination rates, right? Now, if you look at the green line, you have the number of vaccines given throughout the years. So as the amounts of vaccines go up, so does the autism rates, which is outlined in red. Now, it wasn't until around the 1980s that the vaccine companies got the Vaccine Injury Act passed, which gave no liability to these companies if they damage your child or you or whatever. You can't sue them whatsoever. So this graph just goes to show you the exact same spike at the exact same timelines for all three. So it's irrefutable that anybody could say that, oh no, it's just a coincidence when you have three different things rising at the same exact time and within the same year periods. So, that's it. Robert F. Kennedy is going to get to the bottom of this. The childhood vaccination schedule needs to be repealed completely. All right. You could take the Amish studies and see that the Amish aren't vaccinating their kids, and they don't have eczema. They don't have seizures. They don't have tics. There's no hyperactive mental disabilities. There's no neurological disabilities. There's no autism rates. So it just goes on and on and on to show you that the less vaccinated population is the healthier population, and RFK is going to drive that home to no end. So I think we're going to take a break in a second, and we're going to get into one more thing before we go. Robert Kennedy is banning food dyes by 2026. So all the carcinogenic and mutagenic dyes that they put in the child's candy, let's pull that up. Bang, right there. Recent article. So he's going to be working hard in the FDA, trying to get all this stuff out, and we're going to be working hard in the streets here, getting the word out and getting the Patriots message out that we are united, we are strong, and we're going to be back right after this break.
Okay, Stephen Roth and then Linda Frago.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Stephen Ruth, and I rise in opposition to the red light camera program in New York State, more specifically, Suffolk County. I said it a month ago how you had failed us as our legislators and that you are our last line of defense against corruption and manipulation associated with the camera companies and local governments. The red light camera program has been plagued by bad publicity since its endorsement by Sheldon Silver. I do not think any of you legislators read the contract between the camera company and the county. As it stands right now, if a camera does not produce at least 25 tickets between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m., that the county owes the camera company $17.25 per ticket, and also $2,132 per camera that does not meet its quota, who you have been saying all along there is no quota. That's a lie. You've been lying, and you were lying again yesterday on TV saying that there was no quota. Never was this a discussion regarding safety, ever, nor was it in the contract. This means that the locations are not selected based on safety. Who would sign a contract like that? Suffolk County, a county that's $2 billion in debt. That's who would sign that contract. A county $2 billion in debt, used to making irresponsible decisions with our money. Okay? After shortening the yellow lights, the county revenue stream dramatically increased, as did the number of collisions in these very same intersections. In doing my investigation, I came across a story about a 16-year-old boy named John Luke who was killed trying to cross the road where Miller Place Road intersects 25A. I did a study on that intersection and discovered that the yellow lights were so short that drivers weren't paying attention to safety. They were just speeding through the intersection trying to avoid a ticket. Unfortunately, that probably cost young John Luke his life. I met with the boy's parents and grandparents. The boy had a real bond with his parents, grandparents, and his friends. Because of this bond, nobody could believe that he would willingly walk in front of a moving car. They said he was way too smart for that. The cameras can't make any money unless you sacrifice safety and shorten the yellow lights. The county was further able to cover up its negligence by hiding crash data and videos of crashes, saying that they're covered under the judicial system and not public information. AAA is still waiting for its crash data that it's been requesting. John Luke's family has still never seen a video of his accident, nor have any of the other families who lost people in front of these cameras. The shortening of yellow lights has cost many people their lives, not just John Luke. The red light camera program is a scam. It's dangerous. It is nothing more than a systematic form of extortion at our expense. The people of Suffolk County have had enough. Okay? It's time to end this program immediately out of respect for the lives lost and out of respect for God. Remove the cameras, abandon the program. Lives have been lost. Respect the people who lost their lives.
All right, your time's up. Thank you.
Game over.
Okay.
We are back at the America First Warehouse. We have a couple of special guests today. We have some J6s in the building. We have Sarah Carpenter here live in studio with us. We got Joe Thomas over there on a Zoom call, and we got Kirsten Namila, right? Did I hack that up, or did I pronounce it right?
It's Kirsten Niemela.
All right. I'm sorry. I'm a little bit of a hackery over here. But how you guys doing? Welcome to the show.
Hi guys, how you doing? I'm Steve. Pleasure. They call me the Red Light Robin Hood.
That was impressive.
Thank you.
All right, so we're gonna do a quick introductory. What state you're from, how much time you served, and we'll start off with Sarah over here. How you doing? And welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you. Thanks
Good.
for having us. Thanks for keeping it
course.
alive here. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, what state you from?
I'm from New York. I'm right here, New York,
All right.
Queens.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
And how long did you serve for in the gulags?
Well, I went to Alabama. I didn't go to the Gulag. I went from MDC Brooklyn, where Epstein, right, was, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
went from Brooklyn to Alabama.
That's the Manhattan Detention Center?
Yes.
House of Detention or something?
Yeah. Metropolitan Detention Center.
I heard they have huge rats. Is that true?
Oh, they got everything. You got roaches, water bugs, rats. They got them all.
Really?
The place is just,
Terrible.
yeah.
I'm sorry
But-
that you had to go through that.
Yeah, no, I'm laughing about it, but you think so it was a year. It was a year. And thank you.
Yeah, I broke a ton of red light cameras, and I was treated like gold for doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But these people went to the Capitol building to contest what they thought was a stolen election and express their disgust with our system. And they were kidnapped and held hostage for years.
And
before-
tortured.
And tortured.
Tortured, man.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Before
Should have
President
never
Trump
happened.
got them out. Thank God for President Trump getting them out.
So, Kirsten, what state you from, and how long were you in the gulags wherever they sent you?
So I am from New Hampshire, and I was sent to West Virginia. I did 8 months in a medium security facility for misdemeanors.
Oh my God.
8
Horrible.
months for misdemeanors.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I was breaking red light cameras and being praised for it. And granted, I was charged, but it just doesn't equate when you're trespassing. That's no.
Yeah, it was our
justification
house.
for
We had a
judgment.
right to be there regardless.
Exactly.
This should have never taken place. It was a huge setup by Nancy Pelosi, the Capitol Police, and the rest of the Democrats that just hate America and hate patriots. And yeah, we're sorry you had to go through that. And so what have you been up to recently? How you keeping busy?
Just trying to repair my life. It's ruined friendships. I lost family, friends, came out homeless. It's been difficult finding a job, and not to mention all the money that our families put up for us for commissary, lawyers. I'm just hoping that we actually finally get some justice because it's much needed.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So I'm in touch with Derek Storms. Do you guys know who that is? He's one of the counsel for the J6 Association. So he's like one of the guys in the background working on the class action lawsuit. I think this is like a $5 billion lawsuit, something like that. That's pending right now that they're trying to work out through the courts. So I'm in 2 weeks I'm going to have him on. So maybe I'll pull you guys back on with me when I have him on, so we can discuss this further and make sure you guys are compensated for being tortured by these tyrannical, disgusting people.
Well, denied due process.
Yeah.
Process, overcharged, oversentenced.
Yeah.
That's-
Prosecutorial misconduct.
Absolutely. So do you have a place where people could support you, like a website or a link or a GoFundMe? Kirsten?
Yeah, so I have a Give Send Go. It's GiveSendGo /free Kirsten, KIRSTYN. I'm also on X, Patriot for Truth 6, and I'm on TikTok. What is my TikTok? MAGA Patriot 6.
Okay. Very good. Yeah, so guys, make sure you go over there, show support. Whoever we have on the show, you have to support because we're the frontline warriors that we launched this podcast, and we're going to get here with all the most hardcore American people that we could find, and we're going to be on the show, and we're going to support them wholeheartedly, 100%. So out of that whole experience that you had to go through, what was the hardest thing when you came out that, was a big adjustment for you?
I think, I've always worked 2-3 jobs my whole life. I've always been a blue collar worker. I think it was being denied jobs left and right. It's the fact that people drive past my mother's house screaming traitor to this day. The hate mail that I received. Realizing all the people that abandoned you while you were in prison that you thought were real friends. And it's been a huge adjustment, just being locked up in general. I mean, I spent 18 days in solitary confinement, including my birthday, missed video visits with my family.
When was your birthday?
And just being demonized, March 19th.
Well, happy birthday.
Happy belated.
Sorry you had to spend your birthday alone. Sometimes God's your best company.
Yep.
It's true. All right, Joe. Let's hear your story. What state you from, and tell us about the experience that you sadly had to go through.
Yeah, sure. So I'm born and raised in West Virginia, just a slack-jawed hillbilly. Kind of enjoyed my life, wife, 4 kids. I was arrested in May of 2021, but I went to jury trial in May of 2023, and I was out on bond that whole time, fighting my case, being a very public advocate for the J6ers, calling for justice, like my friend Kirsten here, Sarah, and, all these folks that are having to go through all this. In January of 2024, I was ordered by the court to surrender to prison for a 5-year sentence at Memphis, Tennessee. Out of that 5-year sentence, I did a 372 days, so just over a year. And, thankfully, our wonderful President Trump pardoned us, and I was able to walk out those fences a free man and sang the national anthem in the parking lot, and been back, hugging my kids until they begged me to stop, trying to rebuild our lives like they had said, and, have to deal with the trauma that it caused the family. The issues, the lingering wounds now that are going to be there for God knows how long. But thankfully, we're a family of faith, and our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ is going to make sure that all of us are brought back into whole, not only physically and emotionally, but also spiritually, and be with Him. And I look forward to that day that America can go back to her originally consecrated purposes of the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Nice. Amen to that.
All glory be to God.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you have any organizations since you got home over there, like in the local area that you're involved with that can help put out your story? Maybe local news or, something like that?
Well, I did start the Sing for Freedom campaign, and we continue with that until the rest of our guys are let out of prison. There's still 4 J6ers that the pardons are being ignored or subverted. If anybody's interested in looking into that and what we've been doing for the last 4 years, you can go to my website, which is sing4freedom.us. Sing for Freedom US has a great index of all the different groups and organizations that are out there to help J6ers get people on their feet, a list of all their donation pages. It goes directly to the J6ers through their Give, Send, Goes. And that's, if you go on there, you can also find my socials and all that type of stuff. But really the more and most important is that I'm actually a Protestant minister. And so I have a chance to stand and give glory to God and testify to His faithfulness for all of us throughout these last 4 years, through prison and court fights and everything else. Persecution has only helped the spirit to grow, and history has shown that, and we're no different. As for getting my story out there, I just let it kind of flow as the Spirit gives it. There's no group out here that's going to help me. Even my local news didn't have enough respect for me to do a hit piece. So it is because I live in a very Democrat-heavy area. The biggest thing.
Where do you live again?
Trauma to the family.
Where do you live again?
West Virginia.
Okay. And
The
I'm
northern
surprised
part,
to hear
though.
that that's
So
a
I'm
very
squeezed
Democrat
right between
area.
Pennsylvania and Pittsburgh, you know, in like Ohio. And so there's a lot of liberals in this area, unfortunately. But nonetheless, my story is irrelevant. It's what we as Americans can do with the freedoms that we're now given that matters most.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So we're going to spin the circle, and I'm going to come back to you, Sarah.
Okay.
At what point in your life did you become a patriot and really want to fight for America? Did you start at a young age where you had like a profound love for the country, or is it something you developed later on?
Yeah, actually, it's funny. That's a good question because it makes you think for a moment. And bam, yeah, I can think of exactly the time and the place. It was Pennsylvania. We used to go down there for the summers, and they used to have the 4th of July. I was young, like how old, and like 4, 5, 6, 7, all through those young ages. And we used to put on parades, bicentennial parade, and used to dress up and get all. So yeah, it was very young, got introduced to it and loved it. And just over the years, just always never to the, I tell you where from the beginning and then the point where I absolutely, something clicked and was like, bing, I got to get, involved, was when they Cuomo lit up the Empire State Building pink for health care. That's when I was like, hold on, we're doing infanticide now? How do you pronounce it?
They call it abortion. We call it child sacrifice.
So
yeah, that got under my skin as well. So Kirsten, what about you? What started you on your journey as a patriot? And tell us a little bit.
Well, so at one point in my childhood, I was a military brat. Always, had a respect for our country. My stepfather was in the Army. We lived right outside of Fort Bragg. I actually wanted to join the service. Unfortunately, I have asthma, so I'm not able to. And then the next point would probably be about 2015 when DCYF, I had a huge thing trying to adopt children and just seeing the corruption and, basically the child trafficking and the money laundering that they do. And that really got me into the fight. And then, being attacked my entire life, being a gay conservative. And then the stolen election. And, I went against the grain. I really lost like most of my entire family. They're all liberal. And so, going to January 6th meant a lot to me. People ask me, do you regret it? And honestly, I still say no to this day. I mean, I don't wish what we went through on anybody, but, I still continue to stand and be a patriot and speak out. I'm not your typical gay conservative that is going with the left and the insanity and the rainbow flags and the
you still have your common sense.
Story time.
You still have your common sense.
Yes.
Well, we love you and we respect you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
I was there as well on January 6th. They didn't come and arrest me, but I was there and I stood with each and every one of the patriots that were there, proud, and I would do it again 100 times over because what we stood for was just, what we stood for was right, and it was a stolen election. The world knows it, and we did what was right. So we are the founding fathers, basically reincarnated in this time, and we're out there in the masses showing these tyrants that they're not going to push America around, and we're still here on the battlefield. So God bless all you guys, man. I appreciate you, So
can I say that I was listening to a country song on the way over here, and it was all about who's going to fill the shoes of the greats who were singers, like who sang at the Grand Ole Opry and everything. And it really was striking me, like, yeah, this is a continue, and because it's natural. It's natural. So who's going to fill those shoes? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There has to be people that will step up and take the reins from the the last heroes, you know, and you got you with the red light cameras. You know, you're the entire reason why all the red light cameras in New York, Suffolk County side got closed down is because of this guy. And also, big shout out to Save New York, Angelo Veltri. He was up there in Albany
did
lobbying
lobbying.
these guys, telling if you vote for these cameras, you have no future in politics. And they took the bait and did not renew the program. So it's pretty awesome to be around powerful people like this, you know. And it's up to us, you know. What did Martin Luther King say? Be the change you want to see in the world, right?
Okay.
So that's
You
what we're
can't
doing.
kill
right
hate
now.
with darkness, only with love.
Exactly. The darkness always, you know, runs from the light, and we are the candles in the darkness. So
That's why we have faith in God. We love our families, and we want to do what's right.
do we have any crazy stories while we were locked up? Like anybody?
This
try to
one
s-
time in band camp,
But you have any crazy stories?
Oh, I have a very funny one.
Oh, yeah,
I
yeah.
was drawing once. I was sitting there drawing, and I was drawing because I'm an artist, and I just had a paper, pencil, and was drawing Europe High. I could see the whole compound. I was drawing it. About a few days later, I get my room is ransacked. They're coming in. They go over to the main office, you know, speak to the big guy. And I go in there, and they're like, "Are you planning on escaping?" And I'm like, "Well, of course, you know, like,
Who
but
doesn't?
no, like, what are you talking about? Am I planning on escaping?" And they said, the drawing that I did, they said somebody told them that I was drawing an escape plan.
Like you're drawing the blueprints.
Yeah, and I'm
Oh
like,
my God.
that's just pretty. Well, it's a mental escape, if anything. But yeah, it's like, yeah, it's where the helicopter's gonna land, you know.
Oh my God.
classic.
It was very funny, but
That's crazy. What about you guys? You guys got any funny stories while you were away?
Or terrible
Or
ones.
terrible or something ridiculous?
Yeah, no.
No, nothing terrible. That's good.
That's good.
Well,
Glad
I mean,
to hear
there's, I mean, it's prison. A lot of bad things happen. You know, there's sex offenders and rats that those are the ones that have to fight for their lives on a daily basis. And some bad things happen to those types of people behind bars, you know, and, you know, of course you're going to end up witnessing it. And it's some of the most depraved human beings that are behind those bars, and they do some pretty ruthless things, especially if you get on their bad side, you know what I mean? So everything from seeing somebody to get set on fire to somebody being assaulted with a plunger handle.
Yeah, yeah. There's some foul stuff that goes on in jail. When I was younger, I was a knucklehead, and I was in a county a couple times, and the things they would do to the pedophiles in there, man. I mean, they deserve it, you know, but it's crazy. I watched the guy, one of the head guys in the dorm, order everybody. It was about 50, 60 people in this dorm, and he said, if I catch anybody using their toilet or their urinal, I'm going to beat the hell out of you. Everyone's to pee in a mop bucket. And they went and dumped it on the guy after the whole dorm pissed in this bucket, and it's really foul what they do to some of these people in there. You know, there's some real horror stories that come out of these jails, and I'm just, you know, I'm glad you guys made it through without anything really
yeah, no,
bad
they were
happening.
very
You know,
respectful towards me. I was a little, because I was a retired police. I thought, oh, but I have to say, they were respectful towards me, and even they knew. Like, you shouldn't be here.
yeah.
They were actually like, and they would get messages to Trump for me.
Yeah, that's one of the things I've heard in common from a lot of the J6ers is that when they did go in there and when people found out why they were in there, they received a lot more support than the average inmate, because it's like, yo, you guys went up against the system, and you know, we take our hats off to you, because that's something that a lot of the criminals in there never did. You know, they rise up to a point like that where the government was like, oh, well,
Well,
you
not
know,
only
shaking,
that-
you know?
I mean, even during the whole, all the riots in Manhattan, nobody touched any of the traffic cameras or
Yeah.
the red light cameras or the speed cameras or any of the cameras.
Yeah.
They destroyed private property.
Yep.
People just like them that were, you know, trying to make it, trying to open a business, they were destroying private businesses. For what reason?
Yeah.
Because someone of their liking got hurt.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy. So they were going to destroy public. When meanwhile, there's traffic cameras, red light cameras, now congestion cameras, and they don't touch them.
Yeah. The only person to go against him was Scott
Yeah,
Lebedo.
Scott Lebedo, yep.
And they arrested him pretty quick.
a lot of them too want Trump to work on the Second Chance Act and things like that because they're not being treated fairly. Now we want to treat people humanely. That's what I look at it. You treat people humanely. This is not a war against me and you. This is between me and God. This life. So you treat people humanely. I treat people humanely, and so I think a lot of inmates were trying to say, hey, get the word out. We're not getting released on time. We're not getting a Second Chance Act. There's a lot of things like that.
Yeah.
And there's actually a lot of advocacy for the First Step Act and Second Chance Act to be enforced the way it's supposed to be done. There's a couple different groups that are out there working on it now that are made by J6ers. And, one thing I see as a highlight or like a benefit of January 6th, and like Kirsten said, I would never wish this on my worst enemy, but since we went through it, let's make something good of it. Both sides of the aisle have been complaining about a corrupt justice system and a corrupt prison system for a very long time. I mean, for generations, really.
Yeah.
And so we all know somebody who might even know somebody that's been railroaded through the jail system for nothing. And so now that January 6th has highlighted a lot of these discrepancies, I think this is a perfect chance for us as Americans, both sides of the aisle, to unify under the cause of reforming the justice system, the prison system, and making those changes to make things better. So that, yes, they are prisoners, but like Sarah said, they deserve to be treated like humans. If they play by the rules and get those programs to get some time taken off of their sentence, or if they did, rehabilitation programs or job vocation programs, things of that nature, then they should get the benefits that are promised to them. The federal government says, if you do this, this, and this, then we give you this, this, and this. Well, they're doing those things and then getting nothing but a bunch of excuses, and then sometimes even having to stay in prison longer than even sentenced because they don't have the things done. The administrative side of the prisons or for the courts don't do what they're supposed to do to honor their end of the deal. And that's just not, that's not fair. And as childish as that may sound, like, well, they're criminals. But if it's your family member that says, hey, I can get out in March and I've done everything I possibly can. They're telling me that I'm getting out in March. And then March comes and goes and you're given a bunch of excuses, and it's not until the following November that you finally get to come out of those gates. That's a huge problem.
Yeah, I'd say so. Terrible.
Yeah, I heard a couple of people got caught up with, because the pardon was federal, the state had certain charges on some inmates, and they wouldn't release them because it was a conflict between the state and federal. So we still have some people still sitting in jail waiting, like exactly what you were saying. And that's got to get taken care of immediately. I mean, I could just assume that the governors of these states are liberals, and that's why they're not really signing off on the releases of these inmates. But, any states, if it's a Republican state and, there's a conflict in these pardons, they need to be released immediately. So whatever state governor, whoever's in charge, needs to make it right.
Mm-hmm.
So
I
my
mean, I
job,
think good.
Kirsten, please go ahead.
Well, don't count on that happening if Governor Cuomo gets reelected.
No, yeah, he's not.
Terrible.
I think the public also needs to be aware that, us women were forced to live with men,
That's right.
sleeping with inmates, getting blowjobs, and risking our safety because they identify as women. I mean, that was a huge issue for me. We had at least 6 different men with egregious charges. Every single one of them was a sex offender, and we're being forced to be in a cell with them and live with them. And, they're kissing people, having sex with people. And normally, you'd get written up, go to the SHU. It's considered a shot. And the guards would all tell us we can't do anything to them. They're basically untouchable because of discrimination. And I'd say the most alarming thing for me that maybe I was oblivious to was learning how many female sex offenders there are.
Really?
And and hearing their stories and reading their charges. And it was, mortifying. I mean, I'll never forget this. This one girl lied to me about her charges. She told me she was in there for meth. Well, it's stupid to lie in prison because they're going to look you up. So she got looked up, and she was there for, sex crimes against her own children. And it was horrible. I mean, so when she came in, she tried talking to me, and I was like, listen, lady, you're lucky we are where we are. Do not talk to me. I was like, people like you don't even deserve the air that you breathe. And there should be a separate prison for them. You know, it was crazy to hear these stories and then defend themselves. Like her telling me, oh, you don't understand what I went through. My husband held a gun to my head. And I said, well, then I shouldn't be talking to you. If your husband held a gun to your head and told you to molest your children, you'd have to shoot me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy.
So the men, the sex offenders, when we ran out of food, you know, I would say out of my whole pod, there was maybe 8 of us out of over 100 just in that one building. And everybody gets high on K2. They're seasoned out. They're foaming at the mouth. They're high as a kite. We ran out of food. We tried to get all the women to band together, not to riot, but to make a stand. And you cannot get women to band together at all. It is crazy. They are so vindictive and spiteful, and, you know, they're looking for what they can get out of it versus the men.
Right.
I mean, we hear stories all the time. The men will protest together. The men will starve until they get better food or they get results. Women, no. And I watched a lot of women. They put locks and socks and they jump you and they have someone hold the door and they just, I mean, I saw people's faces annihilated. It was quite the experience.
Yeah, man, it's wild. Wild.
Were you in there putting in work, girlie?
Huh?
So was you in there putting in work?
Oh, I educated a lot of people and it almost got me jumped several times. But I mean, on my second day, I got approached and surrounded by Spanish and Black women. And they're like, what's up? I'm like, what do you mean, what's up? And they're like, I hear you're racist. And I was like, how did you hear it? Where did you hear that from? Well, you're a Trump supporter. So like I would try and sit and educate these people. And they sit there and they watch CNN all day. They're mostly Democrats. They're uneducated.
Well,
And so
they
I would
also
sit there
drink.
and try
I
and
mean, they
educate
also
them.
watch novellas.
Yeah. But so I would argue with them and I'm like, hey, aren't you getting the First Step Act? I said, maybe you should just sit down and do your full sentence since, you know, Trump did that for you. And they would argue with me. And I'm like, see, you guys don't even know the facts. I'm like,
Yeah, it's so hard to argue with people that swear that they're telling the truth when it's a foundation of lies. It's crazy. You can't crack through to these people because they're so absorbed that what they think they know is truth when, you know, it couldn't be further from it.
Foundation of lies. That's exactly what they've created. They just pile the lies upon lies upon lies. And you think, oh, the people in jail or people like she's saying. No, we're talking about our neighbors. They go for these lies.
Yeah.
They're all.
Oh, you can't escape it.
You
They're
can't.
becoming like zombies.
Yeah.
You can't reach them.
Yeah.
So, if you don't mind, could I ask you guys? This is what happened when I was inside the Capitol. I said, finally, when a Capitol police officer, I said, "What? You invited us in." I said that there. I'm on tape saying to him, "You invited us in. How about finishing the tour?" You know. And now I said it, of course, like sarcastic, like this is ridiculous. Like again, I didn't break in. I didn't see any of that. They attacked us. They were provoking us. As a retired police officer, I could tell you that they were not acting in the protocol. Now, I am pro law enforcement. The job is very difficult, and that's a whole nother ball of wax we can open up. But here's the point: when is my question going to be answered? Because he said to me, "This is not the time or the place." I said, "We want to know what's going on in here. We want to know." And he said, "This is not the time or the place to discuss this." And I said, "I agree." And with that, okay. But there will be a time and a place. There should be a time and a place. And that still has not. Why have we still, January 6th, why are we still being ignored by Congress?
Because that was the biggest setup that our
Half of
country
Congress
has
sold
ever
out.
faced. Well, now, when I was in the crowd, I was on the upper deck of the backside of the Capitol, and I tasted the
There
tear
was so
gas.
many rhinos
I
that
heard the
sold
rubber
out.
bullets. I heard the flashbang grenades getting shot into the crowd, and nobody there was violent. Nobody there was violent until they started getting hit with rubber bullets, and then the cops came with the riot shields and the batons and started whacking people for no reason, and it pissed off the crowd, and no one's going to sit there and get whacked over the head over and over and over with a nightstick and not defend yourself. So when the people saw that innocent people were getting hurt, the people that were brave enough started to shove back the cops like, what the fuck are you doing? Part of my language, but you know what I mean? And I saw it. I tasted the tear gas. I was there. And that's exactly what happened. They were provoked. You had a couple of officers open doors on the Capitol. You had a couple of Antifa members smashing glass. One jumped through the window, opened the door for another crowd. And before you knew it, people were going into the Capitol. But it was a huge setup. Nobody was there for an insurrection. If we were there for an insurrection, we would have showed up armed, and not one
and Ted Cruz
person would
did
have
say,
left that
Ted
Capitol.
Cruz did say it was an armed. Even Ted Cruz was almost bought and paid for.
Yeah.
Guys,
Tucker kept him in line.
I did
thank
have
God.
a tambourine.
What about Speaker Johnson and the 44,000 hours that he promised to release that still hasn't been released? And what
Exactly.
about the undercover feds? That,
Exactly, because it just shows the
everything
government
just-
complicit.
And that is very important because now you got to see, okay, who was causing the trouble? Who was
What was Speaker
attacking
Johnson
police?
promising?
To release
the
all
40
the audio.
44,000 hours of January 6 footage that still has yet to be released.
We actually have motions in court right now demanding the release of those.
Yeah. Yeah, it's ridiculous. And the
That
only
is-
reason why you would want to hold back that footage is because it goes directly against the narrative that was put out against the Patriots.
Exactly.
So we're going to get to the bottom of it sooner or later. It's
We're going
just,
to continue to talk about that 44,000 hours.
Yeah, I think Gary McBride's got 10,000 hours of body cam footage that he went through.
That's my boy, bro. He's
Yeah.
really addicted
Yeah,
to
he's
it.
good people.
Gary's a beast.
Yeah, man. So, we're going to get to the bottom of it eventually. It might be a slow process in the beginning because we're still trying to weed out all these imposters of people in the government saying that they're going to do the will of the people and they do the will of
nothing.
themselves.
Yeah.
So,
Shout out to Gary McBride.
yeah, Gary McBride, M5 News. We see you, brother. Hope everything's going good in Texas. So,
Yeah, we actually showed in court that there were even undercover Ukrainian intelligence assets in the crowd, and the courts didn't want to hear it. They told me that I needed mental help, anybody that thought like me. And then our attorneys actually stepped forward and very respectfully to the court said, well, here's all the FBI documentation to show that it's true. And then, immediately the court was pretty much saying, well, your client's the one on trial, not these guys. But we tried to show them like this is a setup. And they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear the truth.
It was the jury pool was tampered.
They tried to sneak a January 6th prosecutor onto my jury pool. Yeah, that's the definition of tampered.
yeah. Yeah.
My lawyer was.
I mean, my
tampered.
judge criticized me for wearing a T-shirt on a podcast that he illegally went off the record and watched, and it said, "End the silence, save the children." And he criticized me in court. It's in my transcripts, telling me I was detached from reality, and that I deserved to be punished harsher, and gave me an 11-month sentence. And the only reason why I only did 8 was because of the First Step Act. But yeah, I mean, just reading these transcripts, I mean, it's criminal.
Yeah.
I mean, that just tells me that you're involved in it. How can you punish someone for a T-shirt talking about saving the children?
Yeah. Yeah.
Who was her attorney?
It
Her
had
law-
nothing
judge?
to do with January 6th.
Who was the judge?
Judge Christopher Cooper.
Chris
Yeah.
Cooper?
Yes.
Out of Manhattan, or where were you tried?
No, in Washington.
We were all tried in D.C. Not one person got a change of venue.
Right.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, because they had control of everything over there, jury, everything, man. It was just slam dunk. All right, get out of here.
I have-
Next.
And
Cooper.
he's still practicing? He's still a judge?
Oh, yeah.
Christopher Cooper.
I got Boasberg.
Friedrich.
Do you know Boasberg right now?
No.
He's the one who's who's saying, "No, bring back all the criminals." He
Ah.
literally put, "I'm retired 9/11 first responder. I didn't commit a crime that day. I was loud. I was upset, and he gave me a 2-year sentence and a year supervision." And he's, on the other hand, he's saying, "No, let's protect these gang members at all costs, give them due process." He's the one also who he's got all the bad history.
Yeah,
So they're trying to, that is the problem. There is an absolute insurrection going on with the judicial.
Oh yeah.
Shame
you say
on you,
his name one more
coward
time?
judges.
James Boasberg.
James Boasberg.
Yeah, James Boasberg, you're a coward. Get back to the Constitution.
We need to unseat him.
Yeah, get out of here.
Is he a federal judge?
Well, there's a whole question about that too. That did you guys get that about something? Somebody saying, and this is I shouldn't even bring it up because I don't really understand it, but it's something about these judges are not real judges.
With the oath of office?
Yeah, they don't have real oaths of office.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I heard about. Majority, like 99% of the people in Washington, D.C., do not have an oath of office, and they're on the corporation constitution, which is the bylaws of the corporation and not the laws of the republic, which go to the law of the land. So there's a big screw job in Washington right now, and the entire place needs to get dissolved.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the power taken away from England and the Vatican, which are the three bars they have on that white and red flag that they fly in D.C. So we need to dissolve the powers from them, put it back to the United States, and put all those buildings into the home states and dissolve D.C. completely because, it's a screw job on us.
Yeah, no doubt.
We're not citizens. We're slaves.
We're getting jerked.
Well, that also during the courts, during the trials, they treated us, they looked at us as we were the foreigners coming into D.C.
Yeah, because you are. Because
That's
D.C.
what
is
I've
its
come to
own
find.
entity. Yeah.
Is that
So,
why?
yeah.
It's got its own sovereignty over the United States. That's why it's
So
not
when
counted
they
as
said
a
well, I was
state.
trespassing in a way,
You were.
I was, because
Yeah.
as far as that goes. It's
Yeah,
kinda-
because what we are is we're basically just like QSIP numbers that are walking around. Each one of us that has a birth certificate, we're basically like an animal that gets traded for stock, and that's all we are. We're their property, until we can govern our own affairs and become. All right, so this is the easiest way to break it down. We got like 5 minutes left. The easiest way to break it down is to go to the Indian reservations. Now, when you go to the Indian reservations, whatever contract they did not sign in the late 1800s is the same contract that we shouldn't have signed, which gives them their sovereignty over their land. Now, because we're a part of this corporation, we gave up our right to have, private property. That's why you don't have private property. You could say you own your house, but if you skip the taxes for 3 years, your ass is out.
Yeah.
So it's not your property. You're a renter.
Right.
You're a lease agreement. And that's how they tricked majority of the population. The same way we have a right to travel, we do not need a driver's license. It's unconstitutional. We contracted with the DMV to accept the terms and conditions, and that's why the police's computers are synchronized to the DMV to know who's registered and who's not, because they're acting on behalf of a corporation and not us. Because if that was the case, like, hey, sir, you got a tail light out, you're not injuring nobody, just go get it fixed. They wouldn't have to give you tickets for anything because it's not constitutional. They
Yeah,
generate
it's extortion.
road pirates. But anyway, that's a whole nother topic.
So in the meantime, we should just treat each other humanely.
Exactly. And focus on
decent.
getting these deep state swamp criminals out of the seats that regular patriots should be holding.
Right.
Yeah.
How do you say his name again?
James Boasberg?
Yeah, we want to look him up.
Yeah, we'll just
The public
nickname-
needs to take a look at their officials, know what they're
He's actually
dealing
the
with.
Chief Judge of the District of D.C.
Chief Judge?
Darrell Howe.
God willing, he gets removed.
Yeah, man.
I was surprised he didn't tell Elon to take the astronauts back to space. He's been turning
should.
around everything they try to do.
They should have thrown him in the rocket with the women. Sent it up. That was funny. That was the fakest space.
What a whole scam that has been.
Yeah, that was the fakest thing. As soon as I saw it was like Katy Perry getting out of that thing, I'm like, that's not real. She's kissing the
yeah,
ground.
when
Get
they
out of
accidentally
here.
open the door inside, and then
Yeah.
cover
Oh,
it
let me
up.
get the
It's like,
special key.
Are we really that stupid?
Yeah, that was ridiculous. Come on, man. Like, this isn't 1950 anymore where you just go, hey, look, we just landed on the moon, which was absolute BS. You see the spacecraft they said they landed on the moon with now? We could see it in, like, high definition. They had tinfoil on the bottom. Oh, my God. Yo, NASA, you ripped us off for trillions of dollars. You owe us money.
Yeah, we need to dissolve NASA.
Yeah, they're
When's
not
Trump
doing
going to stop the chemtrails?
And let's keep it real. Elon Musk, you're not going to Mars. Give me a break.
Exactly.
You're not going to
nowhere.
Mars. You're just a continuation of NASA. We like what you're doing with the government and the spending and everything like that, but you still got Baphomet jackets on, and you're running around doing weird things. In your
Yeah,
past,
you might be
so
a Bond villain.
You might be a Bond villain,
How
but
come the Teslas are getting better treatment than the January 6ers?
yes, true. That's true.
I
Well-
mean, I don't.
I don't know. I don't own a Tesla. I don't really want to install a 50 amp cable to charge it.
I know.
To be honest with you.
Save money on gas. Just
My son has
waste
a
your
Tesla,
electric.
but my son's, he's a young kid.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
bought it
yeah.
for his girlfriend.
But I find when they get scratched and all that, they're sending the FBI and again, like, not that that's wrong. We should be looking after it, but at the same time, we went through after how the FBI or that's what I feel like at this time. Is it the dark FBI and the good FBI?
Don't trust any of it.
Don't
trust
any of it.
anything.
Well, time will tell. We got
They say
about
keep your head on a swivel.
That's it. Until the next episode, everybody make sure you keep your head on a swivel. I want to give a big thank you to everybody that was on the show tonight. Kirsten,
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Joe,
Welcome
thank you.
back.
Thank you, Sarah. And we're going to have you guys on next. In 2 weeks, I'll be back doing another episode with J6ers. So I'm going to have Derek Storms. I'll give you guys a call back, and we'll get everybody together and see what's going on with these lawsuits and get you guys some accountability for what you had to go through. So,
Yeah, thank you, and we're sorry.
you.
On behalf of our fellow Americans, we're sorry.
Yeah. So,
I
ladies
made
and
sure that
gentlemen.
when I left,
Yeah.
I made sure when I left that my cell was nice and clean for the Fed that's going to replace me.
That's it, man. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are out of time for tonight. So thank you so much for coming on the Know Your Enemies podcast.
Thank you,
We
guys.
love
All
you
glory
guys.
be to God.
Patriots, stay strong, and we'll see you on episode 28. Peace.